Hello, I'm back. And this time I'm not reading from Suetonius's The 12 Tables. That'll be another video where I'll keep going on with that. This time, for the first time in my life, I completed a story that's really big in the classics field. And I know I just started this channel, but my whole thing is I'm a blue collar worker. I take Latin, I take Greek starting this year. So I've been reading a lot of Roman and soon to be ancient Greek writings for the first time. And my bestie, who is a classicist, recommends stories to me all the time. And the one she recommended to me 2 years ago, I finally finished one of them just last week. Homer's The Iliad and Odyssey. Now, I finished the Iliad. I haven't started the Odyssey yet. And I just wanted to drop a video going over what I thought about it as someone who's read it for the very first time. I haven't had a whole lot of reading of it. I haven't read it multiple times. I didn't read it when I was a kid. I'm 5 decades old now, and it's my first time digging into it. Now, before I get started, the copy that I got, as nice as it looks, um, yes, I'm not going to lie, I got it for looks. And the price was great. It was on sale at the same time on Amazon. Um, I did not know when I got this because I didn't pay any mind to it that who translated it and when was it translated. And now that I'm taking Latin and Greek, that's on my mind a lot more because that's important. Because an older translation is going to translate something in an older form of English. For those of us who get our translations in the English language, um, whereas a newer one would get it more towards the modern speech we use today. This one was translated by a man named Samuel Butler, and he did this work in 1900. So if you find this version, which you can on Amazon, I recommend it. It's very nice. It's very easy to read. The pages are great. It comes with one of those cool little insert uh, bookmarks. Everything about it's cool. However, I should warn you, it was translated in 1900. That means he probably did it somewhere at the end of the 1890s to get it all done. So it's Victorian English. So once in a while, you hit a sentence that's translated from uh, Homer's language of Greek into something that just doesn't sound right to modern ears. Like there are sometimes sentences end like he did so but thought contumely, and then you modern ear it just kind of sounds weird. There's certain ways that they structure sentences that are very old fashioned and antiquated that kind of throw you through a loop. But I didn't think it was a whole lot. Now I personally like Victorian writing. I'm an indie author. I write steampunk, so on occasion I like Victorian writing. I always have since I was little. So for me, it wasn't bad. But there are moments where it tripped me up, and I had to stop and go, wait, what is that saying? So if you've never read it and you get this translation, um, you've been warned. Now, maybe a year from now, since I've heard Emily Wilson brought out a modern translation of the Iliad, I might look at that and see what the difference is because doing these language classes, I'm very much interested in translators now and how people translate things and what was their thinking. So, but for this one, I didn't really get too much into that. I just wanted to read it, see what it was like. So, what's this about? Um, this is about the Trojan War. Anybody here who's seen the 2004 Troy movie probably has at least an idea of what was going on. The Greeks were invading the Trojans, specifically the big walled city of Troy. Um, It was a 10-year long war. It involved a lot of the Greek gods, not just people. It involved people, demigod individuals who were half human, half god. It involved Amazons who were extremely powerful, and then the Greek gods themselves who had a lot to do with it. So if you watch Troy, which took the gods out, probably missed quite a bit. And I didn't realize how much of it you missed until I read the book. So this story drops you in at the end of the war. You're not going to get the first like 9 years. You're going to get somewhere in between the ninth into the 10th, the final year. So everything is coming to a head. And this story does a great job. Homer does an incredibly good job of starting this off with very human drama, a lot of men in war, the ways men think in war, the honor, the glory, the combat, the bravado, the egos, the bloodshed. There's a lot of bloodshed, and works his way into an overwhelming uh, mash or monster mash of gods and forces and men near the end of the book. And it spirals into a classical Greek tragedy. And that's a term I think pretty much most people know about. So you kind of get probably where I'm going from there. But my thing here with this channel is I'm not an academic. I'm a blue collar worker. I've always been in books. My parents kept me in books since I was little. So I've always read a lot and I love to read. And this channel is for anybody who is just working class, who's doesn't have a college degree, who's not an academic and maybe never will be, but you like to read or you like watching movies and you think to yourself, oh, I wonder what that story was based on. I wonder what's going on with that. I'm always going to recommend, always get the book. Always. Even if you don't like to read, get the book. Maybe you'll hate it. Maybe you won't like it. Maybe you'll have to struggle through it. But at least you tried. Make the genuine effort. Because if you like Troy, if you like things like Gladiator, which is not Greek and it's not the Trojan War, it's later, much later. But there could be Roman writers you might like. So that's my thing. I'm always trying to get someone to read something. If you like this, try that. The Iliad, um, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 10, hands down. Because I don't want this video to be a whole lot longer. I'm already past 7 minutes now. Um, it's a 10. Homer's writing style is poetic, which was pretty much how they did it in ancient Greece at the time. So that's to be expected. But the way he describes things, the way he describes men of war is artistic, poetic, also bloody, gory, very violent, extremely descriptive. The way weapons hit armor, the way weapons get into organs and pierce skin, pierce skulls, throats. Um, to the other end, where men are getting up in the daytime, they're walking, throwing a great cat skin over their bodies, and then their muscular bodies looks out at the day or the night. Um, that's perfect, perfect movie image. I can see that as a film. I don't know why they miss all this stuff if they want to make films about the Trojan War, why they don't go more from the source. That's troubling because I think just if you read it yourself, you'd see how grand this whole thing is in descriptions, even down just a single soldier, the names of characters, the things that are happening in mass battles, and then he zooms into like two individual people and how they go at it to kill each other, and then the horse, and then the chariot, and then zooms back out to the larger image. And then in between that, he interweaves a good deal of Greek gods. Uh, Jupiter, Juno, and so on. Jove is how Samuel Butler translates it. Um, I'll get to that in a minute because that's one of the things that threw me. But they really have a lot of interest in this war. Now, I don't remember it really explaining why. My friend told me it's because the gods, Zeus, kind of had this whole thing happen because there were too many people on the earth. So oh, I know how to solve it, war. And that's how we got the Trojan War. I don't remember the book really getting into it. Could have early on. I don't recall. But the gods have a vested interest in this fight and how it goes. And so as time goes on through the different chapters of the book, or the different books of the overall story, um, they go and take sides, some for Greece, some for Troy, and they then get into arguments and conflicts and plots and schemes against each other. So then you have a two-layered war, a two-leveled conflict, which is earthly and spiritual. And then eventually that all comes to a head and they intersect. And when it does, everything just blows up. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody if you've never read it. I don't want to spoil anything, but everything hits the fan. and you have gods at humans, humans at gods, gods at gods. It all goes crazy there for the last few books before it goes downhill. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved it, especially from, say, there are 24 books. So say from book 18 on, amazing. Um, the only problem I really had was Samuel Butler translates the names of the gods into their Roman Latin names. So I don't know if anybody knows this who's like doesn't really pay Rome and Greece any mind. Don't feel bad. For a long time I didn't either. But the Greeks have the names Zeus, Hera, Athena, and so on. The Romans took those gods and renamed them Jupiter, Juno, Minerva, Mars, and so on. Those are the names used in this book, written by a man who wrote in his particular version of ancient Greek. So you think it would be a no-brainer to use ancient Greek names, but no, Butler translated them into Latin, Roman Latin names. I don't know why. It threw me for a loop every single time, and I just couldn't reconcile it. Now, if you never bothered with that, the difference between Latin and Greek or anything like that, you probably would just read it and go on. So for you, that would be great. For me, though, it was just it got to the point where it's annoying because every book I read, I was just like, but why did he do this? Why? Anyway, things I loved about it. Favorite characters. Andromache, the wife of Hector, one of the most sensible people in the story. Sadly, she doesn't get enough book time or high enough page count. It's tragic. Hector, her husband. Troy kind of made him not whiny, sort of wishy-washy, like he's spineless or something like that. Read the book. Yeah, homie's nothing like that. He can throw down. He's got hands. He will go in all day long. The only thing holding him back is the concern of his wife and his father and mother and so on. But Hector will go down. And when he does go down, he does a heck of a lot more in the story than he ever did in that movie. That movie does him in him justice, as far as I'm concerned. Achilles, can't stand him. Agamemnon, can't stand him. Both of them are just whiny, so-called alpha males, constantly griping about themselves all the freaking time, but they get all the glory. They have all the resources and money and weapons, but they keep whining. So why? Anytime something bad happened to them, it's like, oh, good, maybe they'll leave this story. No, they don't. Um, Other characters I loved. Iris is a sort of a messenger between the gods and the human world. Didn't really know much about her. Great character, just because of the busyness and everything in the messages. The way that they transfer things, later on in the book, if those don't want to hear a spoiler, one of my favorite characters in this entire story, so if you don't want to hear it right now, just tune out right now, is the god of the river, Scamander. When he showed up, I, I was like, okay, okay, I love this. I love this. It took me from I really like this story to I love what's had this story and how it's going. King Priam, King of Troy, great, awesome. Hecuba, great, awesome name, like the name too. Helen, there's not as much of Helen, and to understand the story, you have to understand that Helen is the person who's kidnapping or going to Troy away from Greece, away from her original husband, is what kicks this whole thing off. She doesn't get as much to do. When she does, she's awesome. But do you think since she was kind of the crux, there'd be more there? But nah. Um, the gods are just petty, ridiculous. Maybe that's why I like Iris. She's wasn't really one of the ones who was doing a lot of arguing and a lot of the pettiness and a lot of the scheming. She just came and did the job. Same with Scamander. He's got a job to do. It's getting interrupted, so he's got to act. Although there's something with Minerva much later in the book, fantastic. I'm not going to say anything, but yeah, 10 out of 10. I highly recommend it. If you've never read it, get it. Emily Wilson has a more modern translation if that's better for you. Get it, read it, sit back and relax, and just let yourself go. If you're a guy who likes combat, action flicks, but if you like poetry, if you like history, if you like mythology, any of those things, this book has all of them. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. If you're not really used to reading the books too involved, do like I did. I read a few pages a night. Took me a year and a half because I've got other books I'm reading. But it worked out. Just don't give up on it. Just dive in. But that's all I wanted to say. I'm so glad I read this story, and I am thrilled and eager to get into the Odyssey and see what Homer has to say about that as well. So that's that. If you've read the Iliad, let me know in the comments what you think. If you've never read it but you're planning on, because you see this, let me know. And even more so, after you're done with it, let me know. Come back and let me know what you think. But for now, I got other things to do and more books to read and more of the past to dig into. So y'all have a good one.